So there was a big announcement that the government has made, which is they are going to simplify the good and simple tax. It was called the good and simple tax by Prime Minister Modi earlier. Now they are saying that we are going to have three slabs: 5%, 18%, and 40% for sinful goods. All of that. But I thought everybody will give you information on what is becoming cheaper, what is not, what you should buy, what you shouldn't, all the things. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go meta, and I'm going to go to the very basics because this is a nerdy channel. I'm going to start with what is GST. Chat, do you agree? If you want to know what is GST, please say hi. Because I feel like not many people actually know about why this thing exists and why it's such a burden on you and how you should think about it. So I thought, why not? Good opportunity. Everybody's talking about GST, so let's talk about GST. Let's go. Yes. So, first things first, very basic thing you need to understand is that government needs money to run. And the way it gets money is through taxes, and taxes come in two forms. One is direct tax. Direct tax, not many people give direct tax. If Atharva is here, he's going to give a percentage of how many people pay direct tax right now. I don't have it right now with me, but something about 2.5% of our total population gives direct tax. That is also called income tax. Okay. So if you earn above a certain limit, that is when you pay income tax. 3% someone is saying. Okay. The second way is indirect tax. Now, when income tax people come out on social media and say, oh, I am a tax paying citizen of India, I'm not getting any services, yada yada. Actually, everybody is a tax paying citizen in India because we pay taxes on everything, including petrol, alcohol, goods, services, everything. That is the indirect tax. Now, before 2017, before Modi ji's massive, reform of indirect tax, it was a massive reform. There was a very confusing scenario when it came to indirect tax. What I mean by that is that every state was going a little wild. They were charging different kinds of VAT, which is value added tax. The excise duties were different. They were charged at different points also. For example, in manufacturing, you would manufacture a good and then an excise would come on it. Then service tax would be central government and state government partially. Then Kerala mein at one point there was a fat tax. Fun fact, yes, there was a fat tax which was only applicable on fast food restaurants because communism, also fat people, I guess. Anyway, so states had complete right to tax people in whatever way they want. They were collecting the sales tax on a state by state basis. That led to a lot of confusion, obviously, because one state is manufacturing something, the goods are going someplace else, and then that is where it is being bought. So, udhar alag tax lag raha hai, idhar alag tax lag raha hai. Then there was a negotiation between the two states. Bizarro world it was before this. So, UPA 2 was the one that actually UPA 1 के time से ही चल रहा था. They were like, listen guys, this is nonsense. We need to simplify this. So we should have something called GST, which is goods and service tax, which will be one tax for the entire nation, which is an indirect tax. As simple as possible tax. Now UPA 2 cut gaya because Modi ji ne hata diya. Before UPA 2 left, Modi ji was very opposed to GST, must say. Because his argument was that it is going to take away power from the states to tax its people, which means the state might have less room to move around in their budgets and not a great thing. But when he became prime minister, he was in favor because he's not the chief minister anymore, he's the country. So countrywide he implemented GST in 2017. But here is what you need to understand. Now, there is a goods and service tax in place in the entire country, right? The rates of taxation on every goods and services is decided by this thing called GST Council. Now, GST Council consists of the finance minister and finance minister of all states. They all have voting rights. So, let's say फाफड़ा खाकरा पे tax लगाना है. So a person, the finance minister of Gujarat will have one vote and the person from Sikkim will also have one vote. Now they'll have to vote on a particular rate, and then if 75% people in the council agree that khakra needs to be taxed at 18%, then khakra will be taxed at 18%. That's how the council is supposed to work. But the fun thing is that center has a veto power. So while every state has one vote, the center has 33% of the votes. Yes, 33% of the total votes is with the central government. The rest of the states share 67%. And as I said, to pass something, you need 75% plus votes in the GST Council, which means the central government gets indirect veto power. So if they don't want a particular amount of rate of taxation on a particular good, they can just veto it because 33%. 67% वाले क्या करेंगे? घंटा करेंगे. Okay. So that was one of the things that Modi made a big change in the GST, which took away even more powers from the states. So now states are completely dependent on the central government to set the rates of all the products. The second problem, earlier taxes were collected on different levels during the manufacturing process, right? That was clear. Now it will only be collected at the consumption point, which means if a car is being manufactured in Tamil Nadu and it is being transported to Delhi, then the tax will be given at Delhi, which initially Tamil Nadu was a big opponent of GST because it's a producer state. Maharashtra is also a producer state. So they were like, this is unfair. Like, we will not get like the state tax that we are supposed to get because it will be charged at consumption. That was one of the opposition for GST back then. So in order to get this passed, you know what the government did? They put in something called the compensation cess. Now this is important because this is what messed up everything. Like literally everything. Okay. Compensation cess was because the government wanted to pass a constitutional amendment and states were opposing it. And they were like, if we are making losses, who will give us money then? We are going to make losses as Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, producer states, whatever. So the government said, okay, what we will do is we will charge GST. On top of it, there will be a cess which will be charged for 5 years. And that cess will be distributed amongst the states. But this cess will be collected from the peoples, which is us. So, yeah. And then for the next few years, from 2017 onwards, the Modi government has been doing a very shitty job of giving that compensation cess to governments also. But that's a separate story. State governments keep crying. What are you doing, Modi ji? Give us our cess. And the Modi government is like, nahi deta main. या फिर थोड़ा एक partial payment कर देंगे कभी तो भी. Right? That is the background. Chat, you're with me so far? Please say hi. If you have any questions, willing to answer. Because this basic thing is important to understand before we take the story forward to where we are right now. Nirmala Amma has rare quality, complicating simple stuff. I agree. I will tell you how complicated it got. Yes. Okay. So you're with me so far. Okay. Good. Chat is with me. So, one nation, one tax. Modi ji said this is the good and simple tax. Because of the cess though, because of this whole nonsense structure, and because the center had veto power, everything got messed up, right? Now, how messed up is what I wanted to show you. Just look at this. Before yesterday's change, this is what the GST looked like. Now, it is small font, so I will read some of the things. This was in कौन से इसमें था business standard में. So the good and simple tax, this was a business standard article. Look at this. So this is exempt goods 0%. Then there is a 0.10% slab, which is imitation jewelry. There is a 5% on goods of mass consumption and basic necessities, which can mean literally anything. 12% on processed food and tractors. Non-affordable housing is 7.5%. Again, when this goods and service tax was first brought in, they said there will be 4 slabs: 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. But over the years, that got messed up because of the things that I told you, right? Look at this. Small cars, petrol, this is 28% plus 1% cess. Okay. Then small diesel car, bikes over 350cc, 28% plus 3%. Aerated caffeinated drinks, 28% plus 12%. 28% plus 15% for larger vehicles. So you see how this is happening. One slab बोलने के लिए 28%, but every item here has a different tax rate as a result, which is, if you buy an SUV, you give 50% indirect tax. If you buy a small diesel car, you give 31%. What is the arbitrariness here? I don't understand. They never explain why they have divided it up so much. The famous example was, I think, popcorn, right? Popcorn, look at this one. Loose popcorn is 5%, packaged popcorn is 12%, and caramel popcorn is 18%. Nirmala Tai famously explained why this is the case, because sugar add kiya usme, therefore 18%. Whatever. Look at this. Pizza ingredients. Again, another bizarre example. Pizza base is taxed at 5%. Topping is at 18% and cheese is at 12%. So if you want to totally make a pizza, you are actually taxing each component in different places. And the actual pizza, if you make it, will have a different component, which is a different thing altogether. Okay. Motor vehicles, 5 to 50%. Again, variation from 5% to 50% based on whatever vehicle you are choosing. Completely arbitrary. Then there are value-based rates also. Okay. So if you are buying an apparel which is less than 1,000 rupees in price, then it's 5%. If you're buying it more than 1,000, then it is 12%. There's also restaurants within hotels. If it's less than 7,500, then it's 5%. If it's more than 7,500 rupees, then it's 18%. Hotel accommodation also. Different rates. Cinema tickets, less than 100, more than 100, different tax rates. So as a result of all this bullshit nonsense, yeah, it got confusing, I must say, to put it mildly. It got very confusing. So they were initially saying, Modi ji was saying, it is called a good and simple tax. It wasn't. Clearly. This GST council में क्या चल रहा था, क्या मजाक चल रहा है उधर, I have no idea. Okay. But the fact is that center has veto power, so I can completely blame the central government for everything. Right? I feel like state governments must be giving their opinions at one point, but Nirmala Tai must be like, veto. Veto! I don't want this. So then ultimately the central government is the one that is setting tax rates. Another important detail. Alcohol and petrol is kept out of this whole thing. Why? I don't know. I've been wondering. I don't have any answers, but one of the reasons is because probably one of the reasons is that state governments get a lot of tax from alcohol and petrol duties they can charge. So that's why our petrol is different in different states, right? If we had GST, we wouldn't. That's why alcohol is different in different states, right? That's why if GST was applied to alcohol, we would have a same rate everywhere. But if you go to Goa or Gurgaon or Delhi or wherever, it's a different rate now. So that is the reason. So in no universe is this the good and simple tax. It is a very complicated bullshit tax, right? So fast forward to 2025. No, actually fast forward to 2024. Modi ji lost majority. He got 240 seats. Now it's a coalition government. Now there are pressures and Rahul Gandhi has become more powerful, more popular. Other opposition leaders have become more powerful and popular. A lot of regional parties are gaining more power. And BJP is on a decline. So now उनकी दादागिरी चल नहीं रही है. So they were like, अच्छा, okay, fine. Like now we will reduce the tax rates and actually do a GST 2.0 reform. So from 4 slabs, they have gone down to 3 slabs. This is going to be a very common feature if you are looking at articles. So I'm not going to go too much into it because I think there are 1,000 articles like this. GST rate cut bonanza. What is cheaper and dearer? Check full list of items in 0%, 5%, 8%, and 40% slab. Now, why are there 4 slabs? Who knows? I mean, 2 would have done, but no. Government is like 4 slabs. 0% completely exempt, 5%, 18%, and 40%. Now, this 40% is a very strange slab. It is for sinful goods, as they call it. Which is, if you're rich and you're buying rich things, then better pay more tax. That is basically it. 40%. Okay. So, it's bizarre how this will work, but essential food items will remain tax free, whilst various everyday food products and drinks, including butter, ghee, dry nuts, condensed milk, sausages, meat, sugar, confectionery, jam, jellies, tender coconut water, namkeen, 20-liter bottled drinking water, fruit pulp, juice, milk-based beverages, ice cream, pastries, blah, blah, blah. Reduction to 5% from 18%. Now, friends, take this with a gigantic pinch of salt. No, bucket of salt. Because if you think that immediately things are going to become cheaper in the market, I don't think you understand how economics works or how reality works. Okay. Here is how what is going to happen. Right now, let's say you are getting a 10 rupees ka chips packet. Right? Usme there is already a GST component that is included in it. Right? The 10 rupees packet will remain the 10 rupees packet. There will be an increase in profit margin for the company, which is going to either, make more profits, reduce the tax rate. It is not going to increase the amount of chips that you get in a packet. So it is very unlikely that a lot of packaged products or basic products are going to drop in value. That is what happens in real world markets, that once a product is set, MRP set, then the company can manipulate the prices according to taxation and profit margin. Right now, their profit margins will go up. You will pay the same amount. Just understand that, okay? But having said that, there would be differences in other things. Like, for example, if you're going to buy a car, right? Let's go to that one. Larger vehicles exceeding 1200cc for petrol and 1500cc for diesel shall incur 40% tax as announced. Smaller cars apparently will now get 18%. So if you are going to buy a smaller car, then 1200cc for petrol and 1500cc. Also, if it's less than, I believe, 4 meters long, which is not the SUV category. India is one of the only countries that has a compact SUV category. The reason is GST. Because if you are less than 4 meter and less engine, then you pay less taxes. That is also the reason why a lot of SUVs or pseudo SUVs as we call it have engine CC written as 1498cc. Because under 1500cc, you go into a different slab, so the car becomes cheaper. It's weird. Again, see, this is something that the industry has adapted itself to based on this nonsense that is happening. Also, motorcycles, by the way, up to 350cc will now attract 18% GST. If it is above 350cc motorcycles, then it is 40%. It is sinful if you have more engine power. Personal yachts, aircrafts, and racing cars. If you're planning to buy a personal plane or a yacht or a racing car, 40% tax lagega. Okay. The thing though is, even though it says 40%, it might seem like a jump because these were earlier in the 28% category. Now, actually, it has become cheaper because remember that chart? Remember that chart that I showed you? Look at this again. 28% SUV plus 22%, which is 50% total SUV, according to earlier GST rates. Now the news is that they're going to charge 40%, but no cess, which means SUVs are going to become cheaper by 10%. Correct. So because there is no cess in existence now, it'll become cheaper. Although, a bit of a caveat here. This is what happened earlier also, which is when they introduce GST or they do reforms. Earlier, they're like, oh, no cess required. But in the next 3 months, you might see a cess come in again. You might see like these rates becoming bizarre again. So if you are planning to buy a car, I think now is a good time to do it. This will be implemented from 22nd September. So I'm guessing you will have to look at, like, talk to the dealers, etc., whatever. The fun thing right now that is happening, friends, is that a lot of people were waiting for this GST announcement. So last month, since Modi ji made that big announcement, the sales have dropped massively. So now there would be an immense desperation to sell things in the market which have gone down in value. So yeah, बहुत discount मिलेगा friends. I think yeah मिलेगा शायद, देख लो. If you are a good negotiator, I'm a shit negotiator. I don't understand things, but you might be. So just saying. Hot tip. But yeah, so mota now what is happening is that the government is like a drunk partner. I shouldn't be six. Drunk father. Let's go. Yes, a drunk father, which is like one day they will come drink too much. They will scream at you, probably slap you around a little bit, whatever, and you are really scared, right? You will do whatever they tell you to do, right? Then a few months later, they will come back and stop slapping you, and then they will be like, "Oh my God, you're my bacha. You're so nice, whatever." You will feel great, right? But then this drunk father will also make it look like they're doing you a favor. So earlier, because they were beating you and now they aren't, you should be thankful. That is the attitude that the government is going to have for GST implementation, which is now they're going to project this whole thing as if they're doing you a favor. Actually, they aren't. They messed it up to begin with. They were beating you around to begin with. You were paying more tax to begin with and they never give you the reason why. Why is caramel popcorn and this reason and whatever nonsense logic they have been putting since 2017 and making you give like a shit ton of tax? Like this 1500cc, 1200cc. Ye kya hai? Why? It's so arbitrary. But that is what it is. This good and simple tax is going to continue to be bullshit. It is going to continue to be complicated. So just wait for it. Let the CAs go over it. Let the financial experts go over it. And also, a good time. Confusion is a good time to make big purchases, I've always believed. Because अभी किसी को कुछ पता नहीं है क्या चल रहा है. At least for a few weeks. So yeah, that is GST reform for you. Don't get slapped around and don't be thankful because that father shouldn't be drunk in the first place. Just saying. Sorry, forgot to tell you one more thing, one more nonsense things. The implementation. बड़ा चीज बोलना भूल गए हम. Anyway, again, going back to our story of 2017, the first thing that happened when the 2017 tax was implemented was Modi ji pressed a giant button. Not kidding. Pranab Mukherjee was the president. Look it up. There was a picture of Modi ji pressing a giant button. It will show up right now. So, when he pressed the button, everybody was like, oh my God, liberation, oh my God, reform, oh my God, one tax, one market, all the things. Khushi ki leher everywhere. Then people went to the GST website and it crashed. Yes, for months it was crashing. For months people were confused how to file it. For months people were like, what to do? Because here's the thing with GST, again, I don't want it to get too complicated, but basically here is what is happening. There is an input tax and an output tax. It is a value added tax, which means if you are making, let's say, tomato sauce, right? So first you grow tomatoes, then there will be a tax on that, right? So the person who is buying the tomatoes will pay tax on that, right? But this person has already paid some tax. Now they will crush it. I don't know how tomato sauce is actually made. But anyway, they crush it and they make like goo out of it, right? The goo, they put it in like a thing, a polythene, and then they sell it to the next person for a higher price. But the higher price also has a tax on it. So now this person will pay that tax, and this person will like, wait, I've already paid tax on this. You've already paid tax on this. So now there will be an input tax credit. So they will remove the already paid tax from this tax. So the goo and the polythene will have less tax, and this person who is buying that can take input credit and reduce their tax component. They should get a refund. Okay. Then this goo will go to factory for bottling. Then person who is bottling is paying tax on bottles and also this goo, tomato goo, and also like other things that it is putting inside, which is preservatives, etc., labor, all the things. But then they will also take an input credit tax from this person, because there is so much tax that has already been paid. So they should not pay that much. They should only pay tax on the value that has been added in the manufacturing process. So you understand? That is how GST works. It's so freaking complicated, and it is supposed to be, because otherwise it's unfair. But it's difficult to file these things. It is difficult to get reforms, which is difficult to hire CS to do all of this. It's difficult for people to understand also, because did you see the chart? Imagine doing this for every component. Like, can you imagine doing this for a car? A car, which is this car. A small diesel car or a small car or whatever. Can you imagine doing this for a pizza? Can you imagine doing this for tractors and fertilizers and whatever? So every component will have a different tax rate. Usko fir input tax credit करके इधर से फिर final product, then the final consumer is paying this much tax, then उसमें से input. Confusing. Very complicated, and this makes it worse. So so implementation is very complicated. The website was very bad. It wasn't working properly. People were confused. Now I don't know if the website is better, but from the looks of it, people still complain about it all the time. There was a time 2 years ago when the website crashed again, and there was a giant revolt. The problem here, friendos, is that small businesses will suffer because of this. And they have always suffered because of this, because this is compliance. What that means is that if you want to run a business in India, you need to know all of these things. You need to understand all of these things, and you need to implement all of these things in time. And if you don't do it, the government will come and screw you over. You will have to give penalties, and all sorts of things, bad things will happen to you, and tera business band ho jayega. So Modi ji keeps saying ease of doing business, but this is not ease of doing business. That's a big complaint that I keep hearing from people. But on a meta level, I think goods and service tax is amazing. I like it as a concept. I think it needs to exist. Just the fact is, the implementation so far has been extremely confusing and garbage. Now you must be wondering, why is it so complicated? Why? What is the reason? Why do they do this? My running theory is that because they don't want you to know, also because they need to give work to CS. But mostly they want to make it complicated because they don't want you to understand the taxation system. Yeah. They don't want you to understand the budgets and how the government is spending the money, but they also don't want you to understand how it's earning the money also, so that you continue to feel grateful, right? It is invisible taxation in your face. The indirect tax is always an invisible tax. Income tax, you feel like you're paying because you have to directly pay it. Return file karna padta hai. GST as a consumer is an invisible tax. You don't even look at it. The manufacturer will be paying it on your behalf, but technically you are paying the manufacturer so that they pay on your behalf. So it is invisible tax, and that is why they want it to be complicated. If it's simple, then what good is it? What good is it? It also gives them many levers to operate, right? So for example, if there is a footwear company that is going to donate to a particular political party that shall remain unnamed with an instrument called the electoral bond, which is now illegal, but maybe it isn't, let's assume. If a footwear company wants to give donations, then they can lobby. And then this GST council will reduce or increase the rates based on that, add a cess, remove a cess, do whatever. It gives extreme leverage to people in power to mess with business owners and also states. If you are an opposition state which is manufacturing a particular product which is amazing and it is competing with a state which is ruled by your guy like Gujarat, then you can always screw with the rates. You tax the thing that that state is producing on a higher slab versus what your state is producing. It's like a khakra versus fafda situation, right? Khakra will be taxed less. No, sorry. Khakra versus paratha situation. Does that make sense? Yeah. Khakra versus paratha situation where paratha, because it is coming from a non BJP state, will have a higher tax versus khakra, which is coming from a BJP state, will have a right. Humanities one is saying idli. I can say the same about cream buns. So fun thing, bun has a tax rate. Put cream on it, cream has a different tax rate. Cream bun together shall have a different tax rate. That is one thing that was a clip had gone viral a few years ago about this big conglomerate in Chennai, I believe, which makes confectionery goods, was complaining to Nirmala Sitharaman to her face and saying, listen, this is ridiculous. Like when you hear it, can you hear it? Madam, Nirmala Tai, can you hear it? It is ridiculous. And then Nirmala ma'am summoned him and made him apologize. That really happened. Poor guy, he came and he apologized. He's like, I'm so sorry. I was critical about this complicated mess that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis and which does not allow me to do my business properly. I'm so sorry, Nirmala ma'am. I'm so sorry, Modi ji. Yeah, sad life, but yeah, that's what GST is. I hope it gave you a little more clarity than you had before. This is no nonsense GST talk that I'm giving you right now, so I hope you enjoyed that. Okay, now I will see you in the next video. Bye.